about you if we come from the world of Christianity or something like that, because I heard in you something like sound like Christian a little bit. It's not aggressive, right? So just
I love Jesus.
good.
I love Krishna.
Good.
I love Buddha. They are all wonderful. There is no doubt that there is a lot about me which is Christian. I won't even say Christian. I would say in tune with Christ, in accordance with Christ, in love with Christ. Obviously, I do not follow the way of life suggested by the church. So, going by rituals and organized conduct, there is hardly anybody who would call me a Christian. But essentially, if a Christian is one who loves Christ, I am absolutely a Christian.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you very much.
You know what I love about him the most?
I would like.
You would be surprised. His words are wonderful. His short life was glorious. But what I like the most about him is that he was a very handsome young man. Oh, obviously, all we have is images of his physical form. But I'm so sure that he would have been one hell of a beautiful man. In fact, a lot of my students are in their 20s. And I often quote Jesus on the cross to them as a perfect example of what vigorous youth is like. What it means to be fully young.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know?
Okay, good.
Fully young. To me, Jesus epitomizes the fullness of life, the rebellion of a young man. He's absolutely lovable.
I like you to say he's a rebel.
Yes, he's a
rebel. Because I like the people that have this power to go to.
Yes.
And your teaching is a little bit like this. You're not so sweet, like the teacher around you. In the other kind of teaching, we are completely drowned in unconditional love. This is not your way. You're a little bit tough. That's very refreshing.
I love my audiences too much to be sweet with them.
I have a little other question, sorry, but a little bit also maybe difficult. You don't say you love the prophet. say something about this or not?
Prophet.
Prophet, Krishna.
Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, Muhammad.
Yes, of course. We organize learning camps in which we take up holy texts from all ages, all parts of the world, all traditions, all religions, saints, prophets, philosophers, theologians, teachers. We have taken up Prophet Muhammad as well. We have talked on him. A few of my good friends, good students are devout Muslims. You see, when you are immersed in the essence of what the teacher has said, then it really happens. I'm not speaking from theory. It really happens that you see a great convergence in the words of all saints, all prophets. In fact, that is an exercise that I actively encourage my students to take up. The exercise goes like this. Take up 3 excerpts from 3 very different scriptures and show that they are all pointing towards the same. So one could take up Lao Tzu, Mirabai, and Saint Francis. Small excerpts from all 3, and find that all of them, being hundreds of years and thousands of miles apart, are still saying the same thing. Or one could take up Jesus, Farid, and the Upanishads and find that they are all converging. And that is such an enabling exercise. You know, the student does not even come to know how much he has learned. To see that all the flowerings are drawing their nourishment from the same root is to really reach the essence of Godhood. Often it happens that one gets stuck at the prophet and does not reach God. But when you see that all prophets are in their own way, and remember, I must also add that the ways of all prophets will be limited ways. Their ways will be limited by their personality, by their situations, by the environment of their times, by their education, by everything that goes along with living like a person. So their ways will be very limited. But one cannot be looking only at his words or his actions. One has to go deeper than that. One has to go deeper than that with great closeness, with great love. Instead of having the attitude to find a fault, one has to figure out if it doesn't resonate with the truth, it probably couldn't be what he said. If it doesn't resonate with the truth, it probably couldn't be what he said. And the moment you say that, immediately the real meaning opens up. Yesterday, when we were with the Sermon on the Mount, there was this thing by Jesus on divorced women. On divorced women. And it is very easy to misinterpret. It is very easy to trace misogyny in it. But if you are in love with Jesus, then you will know that someone like him can never say anything that is not befitting the standards of the Absolute. And then the moment you say that, the real meaning opens up. And the real meaning is stark and beautiful. In fact, then you are left wondering that could this beauty have been possible had Jesus expressed it any differently? Then you also know why it has been expressed in a cryptic way. Because only in that cryptic way does the meaning present itself, open itself up so nicely, so eloquently. So, same with Prophet Muhammad. A lot of what he said can be taken as pedestrian or violent. That can be very easily done. But one has to go to him with love, with a certain consideration, with a remembrance that Arabia of his time was actually a very violent place, where every prophet operates in a certain set of external conditions, and hence his words must be taken in that regard. And then you find a totally different man talking. You will feel good about that man.
Great work, huh? Tough work, huh? When you read the Qurans,
Yes.
not so easy, huh?
I agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with that.
I am also critic about the book of Christianity. Many things are.
All the books. It is not only about the book of Muslims or book of Christianity. Even in the Upanishads, there are many utterances. And the Upanishads are supposed to be very didactic. They were meant to be instruments of teaching. But even in them, where the discourses are supposed to be the purest, because it is just a conversation between the teacher and the student. Even there you find things that are quite baffling. Sometimes you have to ignore them, sometimes you have to say that, why must I be too interested in this? Let me, flip another page and move there.
And in the life of Jesus, it's difficult to find very bad accident. My favorite moment is when he is able to face the crowd and say, the one who will never fade into bad fraud, in face of the crucifixion.
Yes.
He was very courageous for me.
Yes, of course.
Of
course.
But even his demeanor in that sense, like, he's sitting there teaching, drawing in the sand, and then the Pharisees come and bring a woman up to him and say to him, Jesus, this lady has sinned, shall we stone her? And he ignores them. He keeps drawing, and they're building up the crowd to see what he's going to say, and then he turns to them and says, him among you who has not sinned, let him cast the first stone, and goes back to continue drawing on the ground. And he looks up after a few minutes and everyone's gone, and the woman's just left there. And he says to her, no one stoned you, what's happened? So, you can
So
see
much
this,
like a hero from a novel or a
it's
movie.
Yeah, you can see it just doesn't even give it the time of day, not even a bit of a rise that they want out of him. He just continues drawing on the ground like there's nothing, and sharp sword, sharp stab, one simple sentence, no talking drum and all this stuff, this language, I have no idea what samadhi, I don't know what these words mean. But in that action itself, if you truly read it with your eyes to see, and ears to hear, you'll see the caliber of this guy's sword. It's a pierce through and cut through the shit.
You see why I like him as a young man.
Yeah, sure.
The substance is there. And the style. The style.
In any case, it is impossible to lose God, because when you face-to-face suffering, when you are seeking about pleasure, you go to suffer. So in any way, any roads.
These are two different types of sufferings. Again, I'll come back to that. There is one suffering that you get when you chase pleasure. It is that first type of suffering, man-made. Then there is another suffering that you get when you chase truth. In either case you will suffer, whether you chase pleasure or whether you seek truth. Choice is yours. Which suffering do you prefer? If you chase pleasure, you will suffer. And if you seek truth, then too you will suffer. But in these two types of sufferings, there will be a qualitative difference. Which one do you want? Which one do you want? Suffer you would. That is inexorable. Now, which kind of suffering do you want?
Truth doesn't bring pleasure.
Yeah?
Truth doesn't bring pleasure.
Truth. No, truth doesn't bring pleasure. One day I tried lodging a formal complaint. Why don't you come along with pleasure? He said, I am so big and pleasure is so small. How can I come riding pleasure? I said, alright, why can't pleasure come riding you? He said, I am an absolute solvent. When pleasure comes riding me, he gets dissolved in me. So, truth and pleasure do not go together.
Joy, yes.
Hmm?
Joy, yes.
Joy?
Joy comes
Joy,
with,
yes, of course.
Yeah.
But joy is,
And it's more light. It's more light.
joy is for men. Pleasure is for kids. Joy is only for those who can handle it. Joy is the pleasure that you get when your heart is being stabbed. It is a pleasure, but that kind of a pleasure. Only real men can take it. Pleasure is the pleasure of toys. Pleasure is the pleasure of kids. Joy is the pleasure of taking it right here. Joy is this pleasure. Now you know. That was joyous meaning. That is a perfect expression of joy. How else can a mortal body take it? One small pin, if it penetrates the skin, one small pin, you know how we recoil, don't we? And here you have thick ones. And then you are carrying it on your back. How else do you think you can live through all this? And not grudge, not complain?
To go even further, even beg for compassion for the people who are banging you into the cross. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. So full of joy that it's pouring out.
Pouring out like this.
Pouring out.
Christians unnecessarily blame themselves for the condition of Christ. Christ was joyful. Christ was joyful. You don't need to think that you brought suffering to him. Nobody can bring suffering to Christ. Christ is so joyful that he chooses suffering.
You can even just, sorry to bring it up again, but like you see when he tells his disciples that what's going to be happening to him, his fate essentially. I can't remember which disciple, it might have been Peter, said to him, "Surely not, Lord, this can't be the case. You're the Messiah, you can't die." And he turns around and says, "Get behind me, Satan, you have the love of evil in your heart, not the will of God, or not the love of God." So basically we see his own disciples saying, "Surely not," his disciples suffering at the fact that Jesus is going to die. And Jesus is saying to him, "Get behind me, Satan, you're attached to this lifetime, this flesh.
Body.
In this body. You don't actually you don't understand what I've been basically teaching this whole time."
In that sense, Judas was no sinner. I'm just helping you meet your destiny.